In terms of the nostalgia, Angelica's Last Stand is one of my favourite Rugrats episodes. I definitely had this on a VHS, and I have to say, I absolutely adore it. Angelica has a lemonade stand, and the babies play lemonade with her, and she realizes that she can get free labor out of the babies. She just has to stand there and take people's money, and Tommy, Chuckie, Phil, and Lil are squishing the lemons and doing the sugar and mixing everything and serving up the lemonades, and she just has to stand there. And she manages to convince them to keep doing this without taking any of the dimes because her family are poor, apparently, and Drew coincidentally happens to be digging in the garden, not for money, but never mind. And the babies start crying because they realize they don't have any money, so they must be poor. And it was a heartbreaking couple of seconds, but it worked very, very well. And she convinces them to keep working. But eventually they realize that this just isn't fair. They're doing so much back-breaking work and getting nothing from it. And then Susie comes along. And this is one of those episodes that definitely would have played out differently had they not introduced the character of Susie. I love Susie and I love what she brings to this. And there was one moment that was very key in showing the difference between Susie and Angelica. So everything I'm going to discuss from now is potentially a spoiler if you don't remember what happens in this episode, as I'm going to explain the turning point in the narrative. So potential spoilers from now. When Susie comes along, she tells the babies that they need to take a stand. And they need a leader. And I believe it was Tommy said Susie should be the leader. And this is where Susie differs from Angelica. Susie had the chance to lead the babies, but she said, no, it has to be one of you babies, where of course Angelica would have immediately lapped up that opportunity to be the lead. It's such a small thing, but so effective. And then the babies go on strike. And I loved it. And I loved their chanting and walking in circles and holding up signs. And it was just so beautifully executed. And I absolutely adored it. Something else I love about this episode, which is part of the nostalgia for me, was the colour of the lemonade. Which I know might sound like a weird thing, but it's just one of the things that triggered such a strong memory in me when I was watching this. It's a very pale yellow. Bearing in mind lemonade is usually clear, but that really wouldn't come across very well, and it just really stood in my mind so well. And another moment that I absolutely loved in this, and this is something that happens right in the last couple of seconds, and it's when Angelica, defeated, goes over to play lemonade with Susie and the other babies, and it amused me when Lil said this one's on Phil and poured it on Phil, but the bit I loved is when Angelica said, and this one's on Chuckie, and started chasing him around. And it was just this sweet, really rare, mild bonding between Chuckie and Angelica. Although she was trying to pour juice on him, Angelica was obviously treating Chuckie almost as a friend and playing with him and bonding with him. And it's not something we see very often at all. So I just thought that was really lovely. For me, it is a very, very nostalgic episode, so I'm obviously not necessarily able to judge it very fairly, but at the same time, I think it's a really quality episode. Some very strong messages there about sharing and doing things fairly and not taking advantage of people. And also about who should be a leader and that you shouldn't automatically lead babies into revolt just because you're older. So, yeah, definitely a really great episode. Angelica's Last Stand is pretty great.